morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Huddle. Today is Tuesday, where we talk about everything to do with relationships and communication. That's what Tara and I are passionate about. And today we have a very special guest, Melinda Thomas. And we are going to be talking about what lessons about relationships can we learn from our pets. So Melinda and I have had some really great conversations about this. Let me tell you a little bit about her before we jump in. Melinda is a dog crazy marketing rebel, which I love that term, that title. I want that title, a rebel. Keynote speaker and a customer experience expert who helps solo business owners attract more customers. She's at home presenting to audiences on Zoom or on the stage because she began her career as a stage, film, and TV actor and honed her MC skills performing stand-up comedy in New York City clubs. Her acting training enables her to be a customer channeler for her clients. Melinda can set aside personal bias and circumstances, view current marketing and messaging through the eyes of her clients' customers, and deliver brand insights and ideas to improve their ROI. She's also worked as a writer for brands you may know, like Macy's, Verizon, and Disney, and for other industry superstars who aren't household names. And when she isn't saying hi to every dog she sees, you'll find her talking about positive strategies, PAW, the techniques and behaviors used by outrageously successful dogs that humans can use to improve their marketing and bottom line. Welcome, Melinda.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks for joining us. I'm excited about this. We've already had some really great conversations about this, but I want you to just briefly tell us, how did you get here? How did you land on
the Daily
Huddle, pets, and
dogs?
That's how you got here. But how did you land on what we can learn from our pets and our dogs in relation to marketing?
I think some of it is from interactions with people. Okay. I started thinking about how, especially I had a client at a large retailer who was unique to me. She would not show up for meetings that we'd scheduled. And then without warning, just, we'd all be there and she wouldn't show. And then she would reschedule it for a time that was, we all had to scramble to make. And something, we thought she would like, she would say no to immediately. Mm-hmm. And then come back to us with something that was very similar. So rather than, sort of collaborating on what we'd brought her and telling us a little more about what she'd like. And I began to think that we were dealing with a cat. So
I was just thinking that. I was like, that's cat behavior. It's just not a dog.
So I had a co-writer on the project, and we just started talking. We just said, okay, well, the cat's not coming, or we just started talking about her as the cat. And it wasn't out of disrespect. It was more of like, we have to expect different behavior from her.
Oh, gotcha.
We need to adjust to, she seems to have a different way of doing things. And we need to start listening more to how she's giving us cues, verbal, nonverbal. And so I think that was like my first sort of this person is a cat or has some cat DNA. And so
what shifted after you did that, or did anything shift after you started?
Oh yeah. No, things did shift because, I'd always been dealing with human beings by, that person reminds me of my cousin, or this person is, has some qualities that remind me of that person. And the more I started then looking at people and saying, well, what kind of, are they a dog or a cat? Do they have more dog qualities or cat qualities? And that's when I feel like I was able to kind of get some nuances from people or understand some of the nuances and communicate with them differently. Mm-hmm. And it's also kind of what I do when I work with clients. I definitely look at their audience and kind of put them into a group. Now, of course, not all dogs and all cats are not the same. Right. We all know that, right? Every cat's not going to be the same. Every dog's not the same. But there are certain qualities that I feel like are similar. Okay. And so that's kind of how I got here.
I love it. Okay. Well, tell me, let's just dive right in. What can we learn? What are the big lessons that you've learned, or what can we take away? Enlighten us.
All right. Well, I think that there are certain things cats teach us that are not cats, I'm sorry, cats and dogs. See, now I'm on cats, like all I can talk about is cats. um, so love and celebrating time together. And that's true for dogs and cats. You know, they come to us when they want to, you know, they're happy to see us or they want our attention.
Mhm.
Forgiveness. You know, if either one of those beings, if we do something, we don't come home on time, we don't feed them at the right time, we, you know, don't do something that they would really like, they'll let us know that they're not happy, but then they forgive us and they go on and let it go. They don't hold a grudge. So
Mhm.
I feel like
Mhm.
that's like their memory banks aren't like ours where we kind of hold on to those things and then, you know, look for them again.
Right.
They don't live like that. They live in the moment. And that's another piece of it. You know,
Okay.
they live in the moment.
Mhm.
Communication, verbal and nonverbal. I feel like nonverbal is really, obviously with pets, that's a huge component that we learn, huge skills, listening skills that we learn, and respecting people's boundaries. You know,
Say more about that. How do we see that in pets?
I think we see it in a couple of ways. So with obviously it's easy with cats. Either they want you in their space or they don't. Or they want to be in your space and then they're ready when they're ready to leave. If you try to hold on to them, they will let you know that okay, you've just crossed the line, they need space. Um, and then dogs are similar in some ways because if you if you pet a dog a certain way, approach a dog a certain way, depending on the dog's, you know, sort of personality, they will react. So we have to learn to watch and understand or try to understand what they're trying to tell us and then back off, you know, like
Right.
give them space.
Well, and not take it personally, because I'm thinking of a couple of
Yes.
things. One, I have two cats, and it's like, how can I translate that? Because I'll be petting my sweet little cat, and she'll love it. And then with no warning, well, seemingly, right? There's always a warning, seemingly no warning. And I'm like, dude, I was literally just petting you. What's going on?
Right.
But then the kids will say the same thing, and I say, actually, watch her tail. She'll start flapping that tail, and that's how you know. But you got to see that. So it's interesting because when I think about people, I'm like, I could be watching someone, not really watching for all the clues, just being in my own world. They're signaling non-verbally that they're kind of done with this and need to move on.
Right.
I don't get it. And then they say, I'm done with this, I got to move on. And my feelings get hurt, right? So I take it personally, So it's like if I could learn from the cat, it's just like, oh, they're done with me. They got to move on. It's not about me.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the cat just needs their own, they need time to themselves. It's their, you know, they want to go off and be by themselves now. Doesn't mean they don't love you. Doesn't
Mhm.
mean they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think
Yeah. And I
that,
wonder what would be different if, for instance, I don't know, Tara, how you are, but I feel like I do take things personally, regardless of how many times I've read the four agreements, but how things would be different if, regardless of what happens, I just didn't take it personally. That was, you know what I mean? Somebody didn't want to be around me, or somebody said something, or needed to leave. I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Tara? That
Well, I'm sort of stuck on the whole like nuances of animals versus humans, meaning that should we, I know this isn't answering your question, but this is what's popping up in my head. Should we have to figure out what someone's trying to tell us? I
hmm,
mean, shouldn't we ask them to use their words?
good
That's what
question.
a wise therapist said to me one time. Use
yeah.
your
Yeah,
words and don't make people guess what you need. I mean, leave that to the pets. That's kind of what I'm feeling.
You're
interesting.
right. In a perfect world, that would be awesome. Yeah, absolutely. People would just tell us, right? But not everybody has the same communication skills. Not everybody.
So I hear.
Yeah, they're a little different,
Yeah.
and not everybody is comfortable communicating. They are afraid to that they'll be rejected if they share their feelings.
Mhm.
You know, so there's a lot more. I feel like yeah, that would be awesome, right? That would be super awesome. But I think human beings, because we do have those memory banks, that store away. Well, the last time I expressed my feelings, I was, shunned, or I wasn't invited to the party next time, or
Right. Yeah. And I guess it's almost like I love that where it's going, because it's like that's my responsibility. If I start to notice this as a human, I just sort of I can ask, right? I can use my own words and say, hey, it's
Yes.
seeming like you just want to be gone. Is that what, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess it's also just more information, because knowledge is power. If we can start to use all of our skills to sense what's going on or see what's
Yes.
happening in the nonverbal world, and then use our communication skills, that could help too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, you're responsible. I feel like we're each responsible for our experience.
Mhm.
And whether we stay in the experience that what we're experiencing. So we either have to say something to change it or leave, right?
Yeah.
Or choose
Yeah.
something else, so
Yeah.
we have choices. We have
Okay.
choice.
Yeah. Well, talk to us a little bit about, because we had a really fascinating conversation around like customers and business, and like how you've helped people with their marketing efforts through the eyes of pets, which
Yeah.
may seem
Well,
so
a lot
weird, but it's not.
It's not. It's really not. Well, I think one thing that changes for the clients I work with is when I start to talk to them about it with pet behavior, like immediately, you guys, when I was describing that woman, you're like,
Mhm.
well, that's a cat.
Right.
So when you break down instead of saying, well, this demographic or this, type of customer does blah, 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 blah. Oh, look, see,
I
we have
know.
someone
She
joining
heard, she
us.
heard, she heard us talking about her. This is the
That's
swatter.
awesome.
He's like, let me just step in and show you how it's done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so when I do that, I feel like that my clients can see their customers differently. It breaks apart some of the preconceived notions we have about marketing or demographics or any of those things. And because I would say that there are maybe 1% of the population thinks marketing is fun. And so, right away, there's a lot of biases when I'm talking to somebody about their marketing strategy. But when I start to talk about their customers with some of the qualities that, maybe cat or a dog has, it gets more fun for them. First of all, they're like, oh, yeah, okay. Now that this doesn't seem so like boring. And so it starts to shift their perspective. And I do feel like there's a shift also in their responses to their results. Marketing is an experiment. No matter what. There's science. Yes, there's some science, and definitely there's lots of data. But you are just like with your pets, you're experimenting with the stimulus and with the amount of things and how you deliver it. And so there aren't any guarantees, but when you do zero in on some of the things that make your audience unique, then you can really deliver experiences and marketing. I just use that whole word that captures their attention and resonates.
Give us an example of when that's really worked for a client that you've worked with, how that's either shifted them or, made them really successful in that realm.
Yeah. I've worked with a chiropractor who was doing like blasts of just like, hey, we have a special, or hey, we have this, we have that. And we started making it more consistent. Just weekly emails with sort of, I call it edutainment. It's a term in the marketing realm that out there. So information, education, something humorous, it could be, so a mixture along with, and this month we're offering XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And what that did was it has drawn people to them because they are starting to explain concepts that they were talking about in very medical terms, like the subluxation of your spine, or
Right.
I don't, there are all these terms, it's like, what are you saying? And, when they break it down for me, I'm like, well, just say that for your clients. They don't know, they come to you for that.
Right.
So, when we started doing that, he started seeing consistent sales. People who he hadn't seen in a year showed up again. This one woman just kind of, called in and said, hey, I've been out, I've had some health issues, but I've been getting your emails. So, even though there's not one of those responses that comes at you like, oh my God, we got 5,000 sales from that one email. Like, that's a myth.
Mhm.
Maybe at Christmas, and if you're selling, trees, but it's a myth, and it's really about nurturing the relationship. And so as he started to nurture the relationship, he saw his sales change. And initially what we saw was the engagement with the emails. We were watching the data,
Mhm.
in the email provider as to, opens and click rates and so forth. So we were seeing that. And then we started, he started giving me these anecdotal stories about people coming back and they mentioned that they saw something in the email. So I feel like with our pets, it's the same. There's that relationship you have to nurture. It's not immediate.
Mhm. Mhm. That's interesting too, I guess, because maybe it's true that they're loyal, right? If you have people who go away and then they see it and then they come back, it's like, but it does take that, nurturing the relationship and being present, with them and being in relationship with them over time.
And it takes commitment to showing up. So he was showing up every week in their inbox.
Mm-hmm.
So they could trust him. He wasn't just blasting something every time he had a special, or
Mm-hmm.
at Christmas time when it was, you could buy a gift certificate. He was showing up so that when they needed something, he was there's a trust that gets built as
Mm-hmm.
you see that he's trying to provide information to make your life better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that because it does feel like it's about shifting a perspective, right? I mean, we know that, right? Tara and I talk about that all the time, that you have to build trust, right? You have to communicate. But it's like looking at it through this perspective, sometimes it's easier thinking about the pets. Like I can't just like throw dog food all over the floor and,
Right.
hope that, I mean, the dogs will eat it, it will go into their inboxes. But if if there's like a ritual and then, you pet the dog and then it's like, okay, so there's something different about your language about blasting and nurturing,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. That's a big
Mhm.
contrast right there.
Yeah,
Blasting, it's like the fire hose, effect, or, just a nice soft or a wave, that's kind of the
yeah.
difference between the two.
Well, I
Some,
guess what else is coming up for me is that maybe it's not so random, the behavior of customers, right? Like marketing to me seems random. Like you said, it is an experiment. You throw these things out there and then you wait and you hope. But maybe it isn't quite that random. Maybe it is more like, oh, okay, now I know my animals or my customers or whatever. They actually like, because my cats are the same. One loves to be patted on the belly. The other one, if you bless you if you do that, because you will not come back with the same hand that you
right.
you stuck in there, and it's like learning the different behaviors. And um so it's really interesting. It's a reframe.
Yeah, it is. And there's a tale for
Okay.
us to
Yeah.
reframe this conversation.
Yeah.
It is. It's definitely, and that's part of what it is that I help my customers with, and even just for them personally, first I have to help them reframe their relationship with their audience and with communicating with their audience.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at their audience as less as numbers and as individuals and beings. And constantly, I mean, I hear it, but maybe other people who aren't in marketing don't, but there's always talk about segmentation, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's just such a word, right? But that's just like, are they cats or are they dogs? Like
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
audience is going to respond. If some of your audience is responding to this, it doesn't mean give everybody that. If you have the capacity to sort of shift a little bit and do, sort of two paths, then you can serve both or even more than one audience within your tribe, you know,
Yeah.
with your audience.
I love that. I'm curious what Tara's hearing, because Tara does, I don't do a lot of marketing and blogs and blasts and all of that, but tell me what you're hearing in this, because I know that you're, your mind is
Totally into it. When I read the question, we were going to talk about pets. I'm like, but I want to talk about this rebel marketing. And so we're jumping into that. It's juicy. I'd love to hear a little bit more about edutainment. And I mean, I understand the term, but
Right.
specifically, it makes me wonder, with your client, the chiropractor, I'm imagining that this had something to do in part with the subject line and that little, I forgot what it's called, that text read in, because he got more open rates. And is it because people knew that there would be something of value, even if it was just enjoyment?
I think that that's a component of it. So it's always going to be a mixture, but I do think that the first thing I always remind my clients, and I have to do it to myself, it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about what are they going to get if they open this email? So then, and how can we say it in a way that is in their language and is intriguing and is fun? I insist on fun. I'm just, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. But every one of the open lines that, he has had, it haven't been a pun and they haven't been goofy, but every once in a while. And then I think that the preview text is something that people don't pay enough attention to. That it is kind of like a place where you can add a little bit of, spice. So that's an opportunity again to intrigue them to open. And when you leave it blank, it's fine. It's not going to harm anybody. But I think you're missing an opportunity to.
Yeah, it's a hook, right? It's a little.
Yeah, I've read more than once, and maybe by the same person. I don't know that you should spend 80% of your time on the headline and the preview text and 20% of your time on the blog.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting. I can believe that.
Yeah, I mean, if no one opens it, then I guess I'm a little bit of a fan of this because I took some advice from a marketer who said, you need to tell them what they're going to get. 3 ways to improve your microphone moment, 2 ways to do this. And I used to do that. And I changed it to things that are playful and edgy. And the open rate probably doubled.
Wow. Oh my God. See?
Yeah.
So because you're
still getting the same information, but I'm leading with something like, what the heck does that mean? Kind of subject line.
Right. So you're actually you're getting into their psyche and really speaking to what they think when they open, and you're interrupting. I love this piece. You're interrupting their expectations. When you put 3 ways to do blah, 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 right away, I'm like, okay, 1 way is going to be this and 1 way is going to be that. Even though it's not conscious necessarily, it is an expectation. But when your subject line is something like, how the heck does somebody do this? Or why does it seem so hard to be this? It's like you're speaking to their emotions. Yeah. And that's another piece that I feel like pets teach us to really tune into.
I do think that's true. I do think the pets are reading our emotions, even if we're not, you know what I mean? Maybe it goes back to the nonverbal communication, but I think we're also reading that off of humans as well, And so I guess as we're talking about marketing, it is interesting because they've said, like, what's the energy that you're putting into it, to get a little bit woo-woo, because, that's where I go. But,
yes,
it makes me wonder is like, and if I'm playful and like in the subject line or whatever, they're going to feel that. And then like, if that's what they're after, they're going to open it.
Oh yeah. And if it doesn't feel like it's self-serving, like when you're doing it with that playfulness or with something that taps into their emotions, you are it feels more personal, much more personal. And I agree. The energy that you put into it, you don't do marketing to someone, right? So that's the fire hose versus the pet. If you think about it, you're sending something, you're sending them, and there's a couple of really awesome experts I just love who talk about emails as letters, as more as instead of just newsletter, it's a letter first. And when you write your email from that perspective, when you write it from hi so-and-so, and it needs to be, Tara, I'm sure you need to be speaking to one person. People think, oh, I got to talk to my whole audience. And that's how your language is going to be. It's going to be really general. It's going to be very, just blah. So I feel like when you are able to visualize one person and just really direct all of your energy and the information to that one person, it will reach and resonate with way more people.
Interesting. It's really good advice.
Yeah, it kind of aligns to my school of thought that if you try to appeal to everyone, you will be spectacular to no one. Because you're just
right.
Okay.
Right. It's
kind of like cat energy.
Yeah.
Unless they want you, and then they are all over you, all over you.
So I have learned.
Yes.
I can't believe it. We're almost at the bottom of the hour, Melinda, and we love to ask, just give us like one or two things that you would want people to walk away with, be it in marketing or in their life, that they can take away and learn from their pets. Communication.
I think it is that looking at their world from a more curious perspective, and not making assumptions so quickly, and really being in the moment helps you do that. So, reminding yourself, a cat or a dog doesn't come in with like their 5-year plan in the back of their head. They're not like, well, I need to get this food now because that's going to get me to my next goal and my next goal and my next goal. And they're about survival. They're about being in the moment and surviving in the moment. And I don't mean that in a desperate way. It's really just I feel like it's almost a calmer way, because you're not racing ahead and you're not living in the past. You're not holding those grudges. It's very aspirational, but I think that we can do it. We can do it. At certain points, we can stop and go, wait a sec.
Yeah. I love that. Tara, what are you taking away? What's one thing you're taking away?
Well, when you were talking about showing up and being in the moment, and not making assumptions, it just made me think that pets don't, you're right. I never thought about it in these terms, but they kind of, sniff and taste before they make a decision. And I think that's what you're suggesting, is just to stay open and curious and just take little sniffs. Learn. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, cats and dogs have their olfactory senses are enormous. So they are experiencing us through smell almost more or as much as through their sight. And that is a whole different thing. And we don't do that. We rarely tap into all of our senses when we're dealing with somebody.
Yeah. I know that we're right at time, but I do have one more quick question. I want to know what makes you a rebel marketer.
Because I talk about dogs and cats in marketing.
That's fair. That is fair.
I do not want, because marketing, it can be super boring, and so can business. People I think that there needs to be an element of fun. I think animals coming at your business and your marketing from that different perspective gives it a lot more fun. And it is every bit as scientific and every bit, as data driven. If it's just adding in another layer that helps you understand people.
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda. This has
You're
been
welcome.
fun. And my one takeaway, I'm going to use it as a segue into our 7 tenets, but you said it at the very beginning, and I feel like we've been talking about it, but without actually saying it almost the whole time, which is love. It's like we can really take that away from our pets and bring that into our marketing and into our world. So love, which is one of our 7 tenets, give of your time, laugh. Don't forget to laugh. We got to have fun. Get your 7 hours of sleep, eat those plants, and move that body. don't forget to move that body. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Melinda.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Melinda. This has
everybody.
been great.
Yay, thank you.